maybe it doesn't. Hi, I'm Nigel Malkin from the West Vancouver Community Stakeholders. The first person to put their foot into the election race that we have coming up is Kirk Lapointe. And to start off with, Kirk, please tell us your platform and what you want to do so far.
It's a bit early to talk about platform, Nigel, I'll be honest, because I'm going to spend probably 2 or 3 months listening. It's something that this council has been a bit allergic to doing, but I'm going to listen to the community. I have some ideas. I'm going to test them with people, but I'm also going to listen and try to elicit from the community, from the brightness of this community, from the expertise of this community, something that I believe the community will buy into. Not make false promises that can't be delivered, not devise plans that aren't going to possibly be hatched, and get ourselves to a much better place in terms of the way we govern.
Excellent. Okay, we have a bunch of questions. First and foremost, you built your career holding institutions accountable.
Yeah.
How do you specifically change how West Van Council communicates with the residents before major decisions are made?
Yeah, well, because there haven't been rounds of consultation properly, we have a real gap right now. We've had a government that said, trust us, but you don't build trust that way. I mean, you build trust by doing the work and by showing it. So you have to start at the very early stage, and you have to identify what the priorities are for the community and begin to seek from a really knowledgeable, well-educated, sophisticated, professional community the best and brightest ideas in order to help you deliver the programs effectively, efficiently, and preferably under cost. So that's probably number one. But then accountability also means that you have to demonstrate your own accountability. So I would be a much more transparent mayor. I'd communicate quite regularly with the public, be available to the public, hold regular sessions of being asked anything that people want. At the moment, what we've got is every other week you get 3 minutes to state something. You don't really get any kind of conversation going on.
Yep.
That's just wrong. This is not a vast community of many millions of people. It's a smaller community. It's more intimate. There is an ability, I think, for a mayor to be quite accessible. And we don't have that right now. So I would be a vastly more accessible one. And then around the strict part of accountability, I'll demonstrate what my goals are for the council. We'll be measured against them. We'll change course and tack if necessary when things are not working out. We'll acknowledge sometimes when things aren't exactly perfect. And then I will hold places like Metro Vancouver much more accountable than our mayor and council have been making it. We've opted out of a really important conversation in this community about the role of the regional government in our lives. We certainly have it coming in a big way awfully soon with an escalation of what we're going to have to pay in order to finance the North Shore Wastewater Treatment Plant. This mayor and council have been strangely, eerily silent on this issue in not asking for an independent inquiry. I'll ask for that inquiry, and I'm used to getting these answers over 45 years as a journalist. I'll get these answers for the community.
That's awesome. What prudent and consultative government look like differently under your leadership than under our current mayor, Mark Sager?
Well, prudence requires that you live within your means. I grew up poor. I grew up very differently than this mayor did. I grew up poor. I have a respect for my money, for other people's money. And so I'm be very careful in how it is that we spend our discretionary dollars, be much more open to how it is that we do that, not surprise people every 2 weeks with another deal for land, another venture that is being hatched, suddenly getting a boathouse, suddenly devising an AI strategy to ticket cars in Dunderave, to sell this piece of property, to launch this, to provide this. I mean, that whole thing, that whole experience of a bi-weekly surprise has to end. We have to stop that. And it's really corrosive to the overall credibility and trust that we have to have in government. But when it comes to prudence, the clearest focus that I have to have as a mayor right away is to get our books in order. We are now lurching toward a 7% tax increase for properties next year.
And I would think more.
And that has to do with the fact that this mayor and council for the last 2 years have been pulling money out of reserve funds and not managing the operating cost of government terribly well. Because of the failure of the paid parking initiative, they'll actually probably miss now, I think, the 7% target and likely go higher. So right away, in the first 30 days of my administration, we would find ways in which to curtail that number and bring it back toward a more realistic number that I think people can live with.
Next one's a really important question. How would you ensure residents feel heard without slowing down critical decisions?
Yeah, it's actually a great question because it requires that balance of not over-consulting, not dithering, not delaying. I was really struck by what the mayor promised in 2022 when he was running, which was that the Ambleside local area plan was going to be fulfilled in the first year of his administration. And clearly what he decided to do was rag the puck considerably, recuse himself out of conflicts, but also let this thing dither and dither and dither and delay and delay and delay to the point where the province decided to impose it. And now we're stuck with something that I think a lot of people have some support of, but there are clearly some questions on. So you have to set a timeline on how long you're going to do the consultation. But you won't even notice the consultation if you front load it sufficiently. The problem that I've seen is that the consultation comes after the information is stepped forward, after people have been told what's going to happen, and we better consult. And that kind of ready, fire, aim approach has been endemic on how this council has worked. And so I have to fix that.
And also we've had many, many surveys that the questions lead to exactly their decision, and not asking what the actual community works.
Yeah, you have to ask open-ended questions.
Yeah,
It isn't kind of a, do you support this? It's more like, what would you support? What would be your ideas? Where is there any kind of a large enough body of support for something to proceed with it? And if you can't get that, then there's lots of other things you can do. You don't need to necessarily go down that very unpopular road.
So, paid parking, unfortunately. You publicly called for West Vancouver to pause paid parking.
Yeah.
What is your long-term alternative for balancing municipal revenue with the business vitality?
Yeah, we have a sustainability problem here, as you know, because we are so dependent on residential property revenue in the form of taxation. We don't have very much commercial revenue. It's about 6% of the overall revenue. And my own belief is that businesses are now overcharged. So I think we have to review what that looks like. We do need to find some revenue, there's no doubt. Pay parking has to be explored again, but it has to be explored a little bit more systematically, the way any kind of important project would be explored. And what that requires, I think, would be a greater consultation period, stronger commitment to an investment in the infrastructure that's necessary in order to have a pay parking system, a very clear set of carve-outs, certain amount of time free, followed by some pay, and then obviously some very clear targets on what it is that this can achieve. And you would have to clear all of these hurdles, in my view, before you would green light something like this. You don't just basically pick a number, suggest that we just get on with it and undertake what I think has been a classic fiasco something that's hurt businesses like yours, like others I've met, with getting paltry returns. Yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely one of the worst ways I've ever seen a project administered. And I'm not going to let something like this get launched without a very clear understanding of the consequences that would come from it. And then I think you have to be prepared in a lot of cases for it not to work out and to frankly fix and double back and forget about it. I mean, but I will say that we do have a revenue challenge in this community. We're going to have to find some ways to generate some. And we're also going to have to review what we spend. And there hasn't been a conscious study in this administration about what we're spending on our municipal government.
Very true. Yeah, the pay parking rollout was incredibly poorly done. It was done with advice only, which was no good whatsoever. They've even hired someone full-time to go and investigate it who is yet to see a single business, which I find stunning.
From what I can tell, they also haven't talked to a neighboring community like North Vancouver.
No, he has gone and contacted the people running the paid parking, but he hasn't consulted any of the businesses. 5 businesses in North Vancouver have closed due to their pay parking program. Still on pay parking, what specific policies would you introduce to strengthen the village business districts like Ambleside, Dunderave, and Horseshoe Bay?
Yeah, both of the principal ones, Ambleside and Dunderave, need a tremendous facelift. When I moved to British Columbia, I used to come to West Vancouver all the time. I thought at the time, beautifully, aesthetically set up. Businesses were all locally anchored. They had a feel, a vibe about them that was much more intimate, and it was like going to a market. And we've lost some of that now. The areas themselves are looking quite tired. They need to be resuscitated a bit. And I think that we have to seriously look at the fact that we made these choices generations ago, not wanting business and commercial districts at scale. What we wanted was something much more local and intimate. And we have to understand how economics have reshaped these districts now. So we have to respond as a municipality to that. And I think that what it means is that we have to provide some sense of tax relief, greater incentives, because we want to preserve these villages. We want the ability for them to do it, but doing nothing is not a strategy here. And just letting them drift is, I think, a classic mistake, and we will regret it if we don't actually do something quite soon about this. So I will have a plan that will demonstrate a series of moves that will, I think, regenerate interest, walkability, attractiveness, and some spontaneity in these districts that will, I think, engender a greater sense of community spirit and life to them.
Awesome. Your emphasis on financial discipline, where specifically do you believe West Vancouver is overspending today?
Like a lot of people who are on the outside of an opaque system, with an intuition. And that's about as close as I can come to pinpointing what it is that is wrong. But there should be no reason why in a community this large that we are facing these kinds of increases year after year, and where they're being tamped down actually by spending tomorrow's money today in the way that council has in the last couple of years, shoveling the mess to the next council. Because I can tell you, we're going to be hit with some pretty serious tax problems if we don't respond. So no, I don't have a solution today. I do know that other municipalities are conquering some of their efficiency issues with things like AI. I do know that there are municipalities that are finding new forms of revenue that don't disrupt the character and don't heavily inconvenience or tax people at large levels. And we have to explore all of that side of it, the revenue side. But in my first 30 days, what I would commit to, not 90 days, not 100 days, 30 days, identify some areas in which we can be much more efficient. I'm from media, and the media business in the last 25 years has seemed to me to be almost a succession of trying to find greater and greater and greater efficiency. So I've been handed challenges of finding 10 and 15%. It feels like almost annually. So I know how to find the money, but what I don't have now is adequate information because of the way this council creates its books and transmits them to the public to really understand line by line where there are efficiency possibilities. But I'll find them.
I will completely agree. The district finances are basically impossible to go and read through. We've had a number of people who are extremely talented people with finance, and they can make head nor tail of some of the district's finance.
Yeah, and the mayor doesn't listen to the very committee that he took about 2.5 years, 3 years to set up, but he's not listening to their own basic advice. And so what we've got now, I think, is a disconnection and a bit of a dysfunctionality.
This one's a cruel question, but it's there anyway. What experience do you have in managing or overseeing a municipal budget, which of course you haven't, which is significantly different from managing the business in the private sector?
Well, it is and it isn't. You've got, I've had to manage labor costs in the millions of dollars. I've had to manage discretionary spending expenses, capital expenses. I've had to balance books in a hurry. I've had to do mid-year corrections when budgets started to go awry, when factors would change them. These are no different than what you have. But the difference is that you presumably, as an elected official, have a serious level of people that have expertise. Presumably that is their professional pursuit. They understand rather intimately, dollar by dollar, how the budgets are spent, and you have to also turn to them. Our mayor, when he took office, immediately dispatched them. We spent nearly well over $1.5 million in severance costs in the first year in the community. And what's replaced them is really a fairly meager group that doesn't have, I think, the professional expertise and experience in order to provide really sound advice. I would make sure that we have those holes plugged and that we have the kind of expertise that's necessary in order to run a community of this size.
Good answer. Where did I go there? Are there municipal services, capital projects that you would reduce, defer, or eliminate?
You know, I don't know that we can rescind the arrangement with the boathouse in Horseshoe Bay, but it's a terrible deal. It's $2.7 million, not for a building and land. It's $2.7 million for a lease. Until 2044. The building has been empty for 10 years now. It's not in shape to be any kind of public facility. It's certainly not an art museum site. So it's bound to be an expensive refurbishing, but I don't think we can get out of it. As far as deferring, I think if anything, we have to take a look at what it is that we have been deferring ourselves. I think we have to get on with fixing the shopping villages. I think we have to be far more astute
Good. How would you balance infrastructure needs with taxpayer fatigue?
Yeah, taxpayer fatigue is, I think the fatigue, by the way, is going to turn into rage pretty soon. I don't, what you have to do is be far more transparent with what the true needs of the community are. We don't have, I think, enough information about what parts of our infrastructure are most at risk right now. I think we get surprised every time there's an atmospheric river or a heat wave on how much of it is actually under some difficulty and siege, and I think the public needs to understand a lot better about what parts of the systems that we have are most frail and are going to need the greatest attention. And I think a lot of that has to do, again, with the fact that this administration has treated the reserves that are necessary for that as a little bit of a pouch that they can go pull coins out of, and they're pretty expensive coins, by the way. And so you have to change the culture of that. You have to show people, this year and next year and the year after and the year after that, in our term, here's what we think is going to have to get fixed. Here's what we believe will be the costs of it. And so therefore, here's what we're going to take in our reserves in order to accommodate that. But I think more seriously, we have to get our public finances back in a balanced state in such a way that we're not using these reserves, as they have been in the last couple of years, in order to tamp down the overall tax rate, because all you're doing there is you're disguising the accounting and you're using, again, tomorrow's money today, which no household can really afford to do, so no municipality should be doing it.
Federal government can do it anytime, and the provincial guys.
They do, and I think realistically, we know that the province now has hit the wall. You can see them stopping, or as they call it, repacing projects. So you'd have to be foolish to believe that somehow there won't be more services that will drop down to the municipal level, because we are the last lines of defense. And I think we have to be prepared for that. And that means that we have to have a serious public financial status that says we're prepared to make sure that we've got some funds tucked aside so that when trouble ensues, we have the cash to pay for it. We can't draw down in advance of what we know are going to be needs tomorrow.
Agreed. The elephant in the room, of course, housing and development.
Yeah.
You supported gentle densification while protecting neighborhood character. What does that mean in practical zoning terms?
Well, I'm not throwing my hands up and saying there's nothing that can be done now, but by dithering in the way that it did, Mayor and Council now have an imposition of a local area plan that can't be undone.
And unfortunately, I think pretty well before the next election, we might get jammed through the tail away LAP.
That's LAP is I think I think even more, how would I put it, profound in
Crucial.
terms of the building. We also are very likely to get Bill 25 sent along the way. This provincial government isn't going away. I think that unfortunately the mayor has decided to gamble the community on suggesting that somehow there'll be a change of government to make all of this better. All I would say is the election's at least 2 years away. And 2 years ago, Joe Biden was excited about having a second term, and Pierre Poilievre was 26 points ahead of the Liberals. Things change in politics in a hurry. So you can't gamble on any kind of outcome seriously with a 2-year window. And this mayor has decided that it'll all be fine once there's a change of government. Everything I'm seeing in the Conservative race right now suggests that it's not going to occupy the center, at least immediately, and where all the votes are. And so it's very likely our premier will not be the premier we have right now with the NDP, and there will be a different dynamic that will emerge before the next provincial election. So I just think it's short-sighted to suggest that somehow we can all get out from under this by virtue of an immediate change of government. I think the die has been cast on this one for some time.
So on the same line, how would you respond to the provincial housing mandates if local sentiment is strongly opposed?
Well, I mean, you express your criticism of it. You express it, but I'm not so foolish as to somehow determine that you can change it, because it is we are creatures of the province here, and I know, and I'm not going to throw my hands up either. I think you express really clear concern that you're not getting the infrastructure support that you need in order to have other housing built, and I think other municipalities are doing all of that. Yeah. And I think that's the correct track. But you need a dialogue with the province on this one. You can't just say, well, let's think about joining a judicial review. That's folly. That'll waste a lot of taxpayers' money. I think if someone wants to launch a judicial review in another community, let them go ahead and do it. It's silly for us to kind of join it. It's just a waste. So I would say that the bigger problem that we have here is that our mayor has no dialogue with the provincial government. He pretends to have one, but as you can see, the last time that he spoke about that at council, he was going to fix the local area plan and Bill 25, and a couple of days later, the housing minister, brought forward the order in council, and we had a local area plan in Ambleside without him being aware of it. So he hasn't got good antenna on this one. He hasn't got a good relationship. And in as much as I'm not a supporter of the EB government, you got to work with them.
Yeah. So how would you support housing for downsizers and young families? We have loads of seniors who all want to move from their 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square foot homes up the hill to something smaller, and we need something for younger families and for people starting out.
Yeah.
You're not a developer.
No.
You don't own any land, hardly, the district. Is there anything that you can think of that you'll be able to do to help these people? Myself being in and around homes in West Vancouver all the time, and I go into someone's 4,000 square foot house, and there's a poor old couple living there, and they would really like to downsize, and they're going to sell their $2.5 or $3 million home in the properties, and they're going to move into a tiny little place down in Ambleside, and you kind of need a balanced medium.
You do. You need a stock of housing that is exactly in that so-called missing middle. I've seen other municipalities confront this, and they do it often through partnerships. They're not. There can be funds that'll come from other levels of government to help you, but really you need partnerships. I look at the Kiwanis investment here, and I think that is smack dab in the middle of the kind of thing that needs to be developed at a larger scale. We need to have, though, facilities and accommodation for seniors in particular. So more seniors housing is a priority. I would say, the other part of it that still worries me is that one of these days we could have our 9-point experience and be left with the first responders that are on duty in this community to take care of us for a number of days. I certainly don't want to be here in charge and not having done whatever is necessary in order to make sure that more of our police, our fire, our teachers have an opportunity to live in the community. And I think an administration that I'd run would put a priority on that kind of housing.
Yeah. On a similar topic with that, what about some kind, right now all we have on the North Shore, and our population has grown dramatically, and Lionsgate Hospital has increased in size.
Yeah.
What would you be able to try to do to go and put in some kind of primary treatment care in West Vancouver to cater towards people that have got stitches, broken arm, so to take a load off of Lionsgate Hospital, but more importantly, get it so that West Vancouver residents can get some primary care quickly and easily instead of going to Lionsgate and waiting for hours?
It's a priority, and it'll be part of the platform that I have. So there's a bit of a spoiler alert there, but what I think the mayor has said is that he wants to put a facility like this in Cypress Village, which is
years and years away.
Really years away, and quite honestly, far too many minutes away when you have that. So you've got children falling in the playground, breaking a wrist. You've got people with chest pains. You've got falls, broken bones. You've got it's preposterous that people have to go to Lionsgate or even the urgent care center that's on the Esplanade. This is a strong enough community, has enough wealth. I'm pretty confident that there would be people who would want to put their names on a building like that and get the bricks and mortar up. But again, back to what I said earlier, you need a dialogue with the province. There isn't one right now. And so you have to find a way to deal sensibly with health authorities and the health minister, and ultimately with the provincial government in order to do that. And right now, no one could have any faith that our mayor could basically have one of these take hold in the community, and I can get one.
Back to kind of our LAP, specifically, how do you see the development of Ambleside versus preserving the actual village character?
Yeah, it's an important question because some people frame this as a question of change or no change, and I see it as trying to find the wisdom to change while preserving. And I think that is possible. I think that you can. It's a needle that can be thread. In this case here, what you don't want to do is gut your shopping villages in order to put density in that isn't in turn going to reflect and respect the history of the space. And so it for me tends to be thinking around how it is that the surrounding area of the villages are going to be the parts of it that are going to be most immediately developed. I think it would be, and first of all, we're just in a period right now where frankly people are quite skittish about building, and that's fair. The economics of it aren't really all that encouraging right now. But what I would say is that I think that you have to look at the surrounding area and see that as the greater priority, and not necessarily come at the streets themselves.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Purewell and what on earth can be done with that?
I'm really worried about that because I'm worried about the way it was handled in the run-up to the bankruptcy. I'm upset that this community did not hold enough sway on this issue to ensure that right up to the last minute of developing it, that the stores were kept open, that they or that at least if they weren't going to be kept open, that when they were leaving, they weren't gutting them when the owners didn't have a clear sense of viable economics for the development. So they kind of went to a point of no return. So here we are now with really a number of places that are hollowed out, that don't have the facilities necessary to reopen them tomorrow afternoon. And we're going to have to find a way to do that. Because I'm pretty confident that we're looking at a 4 to 6 year period here where we don't have something in that space. It's going to cost us, I think, other businesses if we're not really careful on that street. It's an eyesore. That's the other part of it. It doesn't make walking that area really all that much, as enjoyable as it used to be. And so it's our role, I think, now, because I don't think the developer, I think they're going as far away as possible. The receiver, that won't be its responsibility. But we have to have the dialogue in order to try to get these places reopened and reused, even temporarily, until we get something that's more of a permanent fix.
Well, Shoppers was a really good anchor there.
It was a great anchor. It shouldn't have been, again, it shouldn't have been the first one shoot out. And I mean, there were a lot of mistakes that were made with this. Again, a kind of a misreading of the market, how expensive, how elastic it was or wasn't for buyers, and the challenge right now is that we're not dealing with local owners, we're dealing with a local receiver, and it's their job to make sure that as many creditors are going to be paid, so they're going to take their time before there's another use that's available to it. Yeah. But I would hope that in getting elected, that I'd be able to ensure that we have some things that are happening in there. I plan to have conversations with the receiver before we get to that point.
That's great. And of course we have the Tasso site, which currently has one of the 3 retail stores that is sold, and I believe eventually will be a dentist, but that was held up, I think, in permits. But they sold 2 out of all the units there. I believe it's in receivership as well. And it's of no asset to the community to go and have whatever it is, 18, 20 units sitting empty. Yeah. That could be potential customers, that are potential people that actually go and use the community, and it's just an empty building. I don't know how anything could be done, but that's just a bug in your ear. I'll leave it at that, but people should be understanding it.
Well, I think these days a lot of communities are investigating the idea of empty business taxes.
Yep.
So it's something that we have to look at, because we can't just be played this way, because we have such a small margin of error in a community this size. There are larger communities can afford to have these types of episodes, and they just carry on. It's a bit of a rounding error for them. It's not for us when it happens.
No, lost taxes. There must be lost taxes in Purewell. There must be lost tax revenue from the Old Tasso's side. I'm sure they're not paying the full rack on that.
And economic activity.
Absolutely. Yeah. Next up, let's go to our friends at Metro Vancouver. You've criticised Metro Vancouver oversight over major spending, like, of course, our wonderful wastewater treatment plant. What powers would you realistically use as mayor to influence our regional government?
Well, the only real power you have as one voice is to ensure that you've got collaboration. Right now, our mayor is isolated on this one. He hasn't demonstrated leadership. He hasn't been what I think ought to be one of the noisiest complaining forces in all of this. So we've taken a back seat on something that we are kind of in the driver's seat about, having to direct ourselves. And it just seems to me that in talking to other mayoralty candidates in other communities, in other mayors in those communities, that they recognize that Metro Vancouver needs to have a serious reformation in the next electoral cycle. And so I believe I can be a large part of that. I can be an outsized voice on that because of the work that I've done as a journalist over 4 decades in holding institutions accountable.
So good.
So put me to the test, I guess, is what I'd say. But to me, we're not going to stop the wastewater treatment plant. What we can hope to do is to ensure that the processes that took place in this case won't be repeated when it comes to the Iona Island plant, which is, by the way, going to be doubly expensive, and which, of course, North Shore taxpayers are still going to pay a small portion of.
Yeah.
So my view is that the federal government shouldn't put any money into something like Iona Island and give it the green light until we have answers on what happened here on the North Shore with this one. And I see neighboring communities in this taking the lead, and I think it's wrong. I think we ought to be the ones taking the lead. Our residents are going to pay the largest shares because of the housing value here.
Yeah.
Because of course it's not tacked onto your utility bill, it's tacked onto your BC assessment. And the other thing I think that businesses haven't recognized is that they're going to pay for every dollar that a homeowner pays, they're going to pay 2.45 times that. And so it's going to be a lot of money over 30 years. Now, I would also fight to try to amortize this over a longer stretch of time. These are not 30-year facilities that we're building anymore. No. They're 50 and 60-year facilities. And so the amortization period ought to be reflecting that. It does cost more money to do that, but it spreads the money out over a much, much, much longer time.
Yeah, and easier to pay.
Yeah.
What would you do to advocate for structural reform for Metro Vancouver governance?
Yeah, a few things. The board needs to be smaller. I think that they're actually appreciating that now. It shouldn't be a 41-person board. It ought to be certainly half that size, if that. There ought to also be a core of expertise that is basically at a board level. That would be kind of a second form of oversight for all these projects, and that would require them. These wouldn't be political appointees; these would be professional appointees. I go back and forth on the issue of direct election because I think the public generally doesn't have an understanding because we haven't provided the one of what a regional government does. But I've been in municipalities where there are directly elected regional chairs. I think it's worth exploring because I think that I really, really discount the idea that a local mayor can have also the same capacity to examine the sorts of issues that a regional government has to look at. These are highly technical, issues that require a different set of skills than what you experience in a municipality for the most part. They're large engineering projects that are on orders of magnitude well beyond what any community is doing. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to explore whether we ought to be directly electing people that have that as their only job. Because I think when you muddy these jobs now with one job serving your municipality, one job representing your municipality on at an entity that I think is at times out of the league of some of the people that are dealing with it, you're bound to get some of the problems that we've had so far. I also think that Metro Vancouver is doing some things that it ought not to be doing, and it can scale itself back considerably. And I think that as a mayor, I would be fighting for that. And I think that other mayors and other municipalities will do the same thing.
Everyone should be seeking expertise in all these fields, and it's rather like our BC Ferries, where you have a minister of BC Ferries who is an elected individual that has absolutely no experience in how a ferry runs, and I'm sure they have professionals under them, but are they taking their advice? Because we sure have had a bad time with them. Anyway, let's go on to you. Public trust and political history. You previously ran for mayor in Vancouver in 2014. What did that experience teach you, and what makes you better prepared for this one?
Well, it's certainly the listening piece. I mean, it's kind of unusual, but you're expected to sell yourself all the time. I'm selling myself now. You know, I'm not listening to what you have to tell me that you're interrogating. But you know, you really learn when you run for office that a big part of it is in trying to fulfill the three basic needs that a community has, that individuals have, and that's to be seen, heard, and understood. You know, if you can satisfy those three things, then largely almost any relationship that you have, almost any operation that you're running, any number of things like that get better. So that's the thing that I will bring much more clearly, I think, to this government than what has been provided so far for the community. I think I'm a good listener. As a journalist, of course, I have to listen a lot. I pronounce very little, and so, you know, in conducting thousands of interviews over the years, I've had to hear people from all sides, all entities, and I think that the other part of it is that you have to be extremely tolerant of criticism. You have to keep an open mind that you don't necessarily have the answer, even though you think you've arrived at one. So you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared to change it. Human beings are like that. You also have to, I think, not be as certain that you've got all of the answers. You have to be prepared. I think the way that all human beings have to be prepared to acknowledge mistakes, to own them when they happen, and to try to tell people how it is that you've learned from them. And in running in 2014, the other thing that I was a little baffled by, but understood, is that people want a sense of aspiration about their community. Sometimes that aspiration can be a little off where it ought to be. In my case, in 2014, we had a mayor that was telling the community that it could stop the pipeline and that it could be the greenest community in the world. And in as much as I knew that was a bit of a hoax, the pipeline wasn't going to stop because the city of Vancouver wanted it to stop, and being the greenest city in the world meant doing a lot of things that people were never going to be prepared to pay for. The point was that what he was trying to do was to fuel the community with a sense of aspiration. So I think it's important as just as an operating procedure to make sure that all you're doing is not railing against what has taken place, but that you need to provide a positive plan for people. And so I think as we get along in this campaign, where I will morph into this person who has gone from just simply complaining about the things that have been done and what wasn't done and how it was done, to someone who I hope the community will see has a positive vision for the community, a plan that I think can really galvanize the community. And I think in the end, it's much, much more pleasant way of dealing with it.
And solutions. Next up, some voters may see you as an outsider to West Vancouver municipal politics.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you? Oh, sorry. Why are you the right fit today?
Well, probably the person that can most objectively evaluate the situation as an outsider. I think insiders aren't the ones to necessarily come to a conclusion about something. You're largely in your own bubble, and whereas I think I can apply a lot more objectivity to any kind of problem that's posed.
Perfect answer. I agree. Before we go to closing questions, the biggest elephant in the room and the number one complaint that every single person in West Vancouver that we've ever surveyed has is traffic.
Yeah.
And our current mayor had said that he was going to look into microtransit and this, that, and the other. And to the best of my knowledge so far, we've had a bike lane installed that no one uses. That's what we have. A bike lane that goes from 25th to 31st. And then, of course, unless you're I won't say Olympic athlete, but I probably couldn't ride up 31st to get up into to Westmount region. So what can you do? And do you have any thoughts and plans of what we can do to go and ease congestion? And I'll just put in my 2 cents worth is being an Ambleside merchant now for 35 years, our biggest bottleneck happens to be 15th and Marine, which is right below our current mayor's office, well, former office. And that traffic light desperately needs a left-hand turn signal when you're heading westbound to get some of the traffic so it doesn't just stop in that block and get it up 15th Street. And that's something that could be done in your first 90 days. So could you commit to going and at least trying to get that done, because that will alleviate a big bottleneck in Ambleside. There's nothing we can do about Lionsgate Bridge. It would be nice to be able to promote people to use transit. I use transit, well, I recently, not that many people know, I recently had a stroke, so I couldn't drive for a month. And I took the bus, and you know what? If you kind of time it well, the bus is actually fantastic. So use the bus more, people, and then the traffic won't be as bad on Lionsgate Bridge.
I'm a big fan of the blue bus. It's right at the bottom of my street. I take it at least 3-4 times a week.
Any other solutions you have?
Well, I'd like to raise the issue of seniors' mobility. This was again another promise that was made in 2022. There's no reason why we can't create our own system here that would permit more seniors to age where they are, but also be much more mobile.
Get out.
So we've got these smaller buses. That's fine, but there are other ways I think that we need to have in order to ensure that more seniors have mobility to get to the shopping villages, to get to their doctors, to basically get out.
Exist.
And I think I'm concerned that we have left this issue drift considerably over the years. It is resolvable. It's not an expensive issue to tackle, and I think we have a number of people who need the service. And so, yeah, I would certainly see it as a transportation priority for me.
And we go to closing questions. Lucky you. What one difficult decision do you believe the West Van Council has avoided, and how would you address it directly? Kirk has no idea about any of these questions in advance. The others might.
No, these are good.
That's a nasty curveball at you. Please try and answer.
So let me get this right again.
What is one difficult decision you believe that West Vancouver Council has avoided, and how would you address it?
Yeah, it's recent enough. It's the pay parking. It's the pay parking issue. It would have been wise a year ago to just press the pause button and have a reconsideration of this. You're just getting just far enough along were the first 3 parks. We're encountering concerns about the technology. You could sort of see that this was, as it rolled out a little bit more, that it was going to hit the wall.
And it has.
And it really hit the wall, and it splattered when it did. So yeah, that to me has been a signature accomplishment of this council, which is that it managed to take an issue that so many other places have tangled with successfully, and
we blew it.
It's essentially blew it, yeah.
So you have the floor. Any final comments you have? What else would you like? My only comment that I'm going to say, and then you finish up, is Kirk's the only person that has come to the plate. We really, really, really need other people that are willing to go and put in their time for community service and run for councillors. Maybe another mayor. I think 2's enough, but we definitely need some new councillors, and we need hopefully some young blood, and maybe we could get an older soccer mom or something else. But we have limited diversity in our current council. They've all been there for a while, and it's time for a change. Luckily, West Van Community Stakeholders has a platform that reaches a large amount of the community, and we're going to do this exact kind of thing with anyone that wants to run. And hopefully we will have more candidates and more people to help Kirk get along with his campaign. The floor's yours.
Oh, well, it's been comprehensive in talking to you about these issues, and I think we've touched on pretty well everything. What I would say, what I would encourage people to do too is municipal governments now are going to mean more and more in our lives. And we have poor voter turnout, and we have to do something in order to ensure that the turnout is higher. I also would say that I'm operating as an underdog in these types of things, because I'm not the incumbent. Incumbents have a very significant advantage in terms of public awareness. So if any of the people who are watching this want to volunteer with our campaign, want to talk to me about issues, want to stir in me a new understanding about something that I probably don't know, I'm easily found. I mean, Kirk at kirklapointe.ca. I've been drinking my body weight in coffee every day, Nigel. It's thankfully we have very good coffee outlets here in West Vancouver. We do it well. So I'm having that. But I'm also really interested in hearing from people, and I'm going to treat this next number of months the way that I would treat an investigative journalism project, which is to try to get the best possible answers to the toughest questions that are facing the community, and have them arrayed in such a way that when we get into the more intense period, where a lot more people are paying attention to what is being said, that I'll have things to say that will resonate well with the community, and it will provide us with a bit of a longer vision than simply a term of government. We need to understand as a community where we're going to go over a long stretch of time in order to have the sustainability that we all wish to supply our services and to meet the growing needs that we have as a community. So I'll roll up my sleeves eventually here and get to the point where I think I've got the plan that I think will be much more attractive for people than what they've seen to date from others, and I'm hopeful that it'll lead to some success.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time.
And I hope that you'll share this with everybody, and hopefully we can go and get, as I said, more candidates, but more importantly, you got to meet our potential new mayor. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
That was easy.